You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by the National Association of Convenience Stores.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Lenard. I'm with the National Association of Convenience Stores. And what we talk about on Convenience Matters are things that matter to convenience retailers. And if they matter to convenience retailers, they matter to their customers, which is basically half of the United States. Half of the United States comes from a convenience store every day. So let's talk about things that are of interest. Today we will get an Ivy League education. And we are going to talk about some things about what you can do in stores. And I am joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
And Carolyn and I are both working on this project this initiative that we call Refresh, where what we try to do is look at ways to refresh the industry's offering, their image, and work with great partners to make it all happen. And today we have Adam Brumberg with Cornell University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff and Carolyn, for having me. It's a pleasure to speak to you today here in lovely Atlanta.
And we're here at the NACS Show. We had a session today that Adam led talking about how do you get behind the psychology of customers and change the dynamic for healthy options in stores. It was a packed room on an early morning when you know that there are other options that they could have done. So not only healthy options, but options for education. It was pretty impressive, the size of the room and the number of people in there. Give us a summary of what you do at Cornell University that can help convenience retailers do a better job of selling healthy items.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jeff. And I'm sure they were mainly there to see you talk, not so much me this morning. I'm the Deputy Director of something called the Cornell Food and Brand Lab. We're a consumer behavior research center based at Cornell University. And all of our work is around how environment and other factors impact food choices, food experiences, everything from what you choose, how much of it you choose, even how much you like it. We'd like to say that we've done research anywhere there's a food choice, from K through 12 schools to people's homes and to convenience stores and other forms of retail channel restaurants, that sort of thing. And so this morning what we were talking about was some of the kind of the background psychology of how people may say one thing but do another, and what are some of the things that drive that. This will resonate with your audience a lot. The two biggest drivers of food choices are habit and, wait for it, convenience. So the more convenient you make certain things, the more likely somebody is to select them. So from a convenience store point of view, looking to sell more healthy items, the easier you make those items to find, or the easier the better real estate you give them, the more likely people are to select them. And I can hear people in the audience saying, well, why do I care if they select healthy things versus unhealthy things? And from a straight up today's profit point of view, you may not care about that. But we know from other experimentation that people's overall impressions of you as a retailer or as an institution are largely very much impacted by the kind of things you represent. So if a customer comes into your store and they feel like you're helping them to make healthier choices, they'll actually have a better opinion of you as a retailer and as a location for shopping.
And there really are better margins too. And when you look at customer bases, everybody wants the female customer. And we under-index on female customers, and they tend to be the ones that guide purchasing decisions, not just for themselves, but for their families.
Right.
We do surveys where we look at customers and we ask, did you come inside the store with someone? Men tend to be lone wolves. They come in by themselves. Women come in with people. And so not only do healthy options encourage more women to your stores, they're bringing people with them.
And I haven't seen the numbers in this, but I'd be willing to bet that some significant portion of the time, those people they're bringing in are children. We've done a bunch of research around how things like creative naming impacts not just what kids select, but how much they actually consume of them, consume of the things they select. For example, we have a couple of famous studies now which show that if you call carrots X-ray vision carrots, kids eat twice as many carrots than if they're just baby carrots. So, moms and dads, kid may one thing parents hate more than anything is they buy something for a kid and then they don't eat it. So if you were in a convenience store and your kid purchased some X-ray vision carrots and then they ate them all, that's going to make mom happier and again increase your perception of the store. We did another study where we showed that putting stickers of Elmo on apples increased the selection and consumption of apples by 50 and then 60%, 50% increase in selection and 60% increase in consumption of the apples once they were selected. And here's the nice little secret that your folks may or may not know. A number of years ago, the Children's Television Workshop made a deal with the USDA so that anybody, anywhere can use Sesame Street branded characters to promote foods as long as it's fruits and vegetables. So NACS members, you can go to the dollar store, buy all the Elmo stickers you want, and stick them on, and nobody can sue you for it.
So, as a mom of two, is there any kind of fruits or vegetables that encourage extra listening?
Extra listening? You mean like to a podcast?
Speaking of that, and healthy options and whatnot, you did a study on organic cookies.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are these things called health halos, and they go in both directions, right? So the specific study you're talking about is that we gave a bunch of people organic cookies, and we told half of them they were organic, and we told half of them they weren't organic. If you knew you were eating organic cookies, you rated the flavor lower, but you were willing to pay more for it. So, which tells a little bit about our psyche and our association with. And the reason they do that is because there's a perception in consumers that organic foods are healthier. Some people even believe that they are more nutritious. There's no scientific evidence for that, but that is the association. So if you make a healthy association with an item that's supposed to be indulgent, in this case cookies, that depresses your expectation of the flavor, because we all know that I'm using air quotes here, which is silly to do on a podcast, but we all know that healthy things aren't supposed to taste good. By contrast, organic can drive up your perception of flavors for things that are already perceived to be healthy. So organic yogurt tastes better to people than non-organic yogurt, which kind of leads me back to one of our points. One of our mottos is it's not nutrition until it's eaten. So we're really focused on doing things that will help people eat more of the healthful foods that they consume. But messaging healthy or healthful can be counterproductive in that regard. So we really try to focus on changing the environment so that those healthful items are the most convenient and the easiest to get to, or in messaging, focusing on function, right? So you don't talk about healthy water, you talk about the hydration effects of water. You don't talk about the healthfulness of nuts, you talk about they're packed with protein, and things like that. People don't even necessarily need to have a deep understanding of what the functional message is, but if people respond better generally, and there are exceptions, of course, but generally to the messages that relate to their performance and to the function of the food, as opposed to just being healthy versus unhealthy.
Well, air quotes don't work on podcasts. I'm nodding. There's only a slight rattle you hear, but otherwise that's really ineffective too. One of the things in the session you had today, you were talking about the results of a retailer. You do retail studies, and you're working with some NACS members. Mm-hmm. This is not just theory. You're putting things into action. And you did two separate tests. One where you looked at placement of healthy beverages in the store and how that played out against another store where you didn't do these, where you didn't do the resets. And then you also looked at a store where you put messages and compared that to a store that didn't. Can you talk about those results?
Yeah. So the basics. It was a really simple study. We basically, and this is with we did this with the Marine Marts on a couple of the bases. And essentially, what we did was for the location, I just asked them to rearrange the planogram of their coolers so that they basically went from lowest calorie to highest calorie, with water being in the prime real estate in the basically in the eye level section, and then you have the diet sodas and the functional waters, and then the full calorie sodas at the bottom. The net results of that were actually quite good. There was an increase in sales of water, which is what we were after, without a decrease in overall sales of the category, of the cooler category. So they basically just kind of shuffled things around a little bit, but they sold enough water to make up for whatever full calorie soda they weren't selling. So that was a good proof of concept and a successful study. Where we really saw the big bang for the buck was with those targeted functional messaging. They basically had some clings on the doors, and these were all focused at hydration. So it was all water and vitamin waters and things of that nature. But they saw with the functional message clings, they saw an increase of 11% in the overall cooler category, and I believe it was 21% within the targeted items themselves. So additional sales as well as overall more helpful things. And they were, gosh, I'm blanking on that.
Well, yeah, I saw you in the presentation. You showed 4 different examples, and they were 2-3 word. You didn't have a treatise on here, and it was very simple and very understandable. And you took water and you put another. You told them how to use it essentially.
Right.
And that 11% and 20% increases are phenomenal. You did nothing else at the store. So if you want to grow your sales, 11%. Simple things like telling them how to use your products.
Right, absolutely.
That's a good year, 11% increase.
Yeah,
You talked a little bit about floor stickers as well. We're talking about decals on the coolers. What about getting them towards those coolers?
Yeah, that's a great point. So when we do survey work with consumers in a variety of locations, we'll often ask them, well, what sort of things would you like to see in these locations? And not infrequently, those things that they say they would like to see exist in those retailers or in those spaces. They're just not aware of them. And part of that is, since we're usually talking about healthful items, some retailers are a little bit, they don't want to give really good real estate to the items that they, and I'm using the air quotes again, know aren't going to sell.
I'm nodding again.
Can you turn up the gain so we can hear his rattle? Part of this is part of the behavioral economics and food psychology thing is to come up with clever ways to help people find these items that you already have that they have said in some place that they like, but they don't necessarily buy in your store. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of retailing, I mean, one of the challenges that convenience stores face is that the customer is more programmed there than in almost any other retail shopping space. They have a limited time frame. They don't anticipate being in the store for more than a couple of minutes. They know exactly what they're going to get, so they don't wander very much. But something as simple as an arrow or a set of decals on the floor that say this way to proper hydration or something like that can get people to just take a turn. We follow arrows, we follow directions kind of unconsciously. So you can have an impact by just putting something as simple as an arrow that suggests that somebody go off to that side. Then all of a sudden they can discover this whole new category of things that you have for sale for them.
And one of the things, I've been to the lab, and they gave us a tour where they took us around and they showed some of the various elements. This isn't theory. This isn't a bunch of professors saying there, well, I think this works. And it's not even asking what they will do. You put them in a setting, and you convert your lab, if you're working with the airline industry, it looks like you're on an airplane. If you go create a movie theater, create a convenience store, you create the setting. And one of the videos you showed today, I thought it was fascinating, where you basically, and you had a bunch of interns and you told them that they were having strawberry yogurt, yet it was vanilla yogurt with chocolate sauce in it. You blindfolded them. You told them to pick which of the yogurts was more strawberry. And they all thought it was strawberry because you told them it was strawberry. Now, the point of this isn't that, look, consumers are silly. It's that this is the way the brain works, and this is what you can do once you know this is how the brain works.
Right. Well, I mean, part of the reason that the yogurt study works is that we have given them a job, and the job is tell me which one has more strawberry flavor. We don't ask them to identify. We'd have very different results if we say, please tell me what flavor this is. It would be very different. But if you bound the suggestion by it's something we call choice architecture. Basically, you're driving the outcome by framing the question a certain way. All the parents listening have done this at one time or another with their kids, with the famous, do you want to clean up your room now, or do you want to clean up your room after SpongeBob? In a perfect world, the result would be no argument. But I think everybody knows there's still an argument, but it's a very different argument if they've got to choose the time and place, because you can always say, well, you made the choice, and that tends to work very well. Anything you can do where you can give people a choice between options, the people tend to be a lot happier, and the byproduct of that is when we make a choice. If you choose between two different foods, you're likely to eat more than if I just give you the food, because it's something in psychology we call attribution. You have an ownership of that choice, and you tend to follow through more on that.
We are going to work more with Cornell University, and if there are other retailers who would like to work with us, we have a lot of tests we can do.
Yeah.
We want to grow sales, and we want to work in figuring out how we can tell our story, because we're looking at convenience and we're looking at habit, and that's really our core customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I promised at the beginning that you would get a Ivy League education. You just got it now.
Saying that, and
the diploma, from what I understand, requires a couple more years and maybe a couple payments.
You know what,
and some
Jeff?
work.
The diploma's in the mail.
Free beer tomorrow.
Exactly right.
Thank you, Adam, for joining us.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Carolyn.
We will be in touch, and thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
You've been listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. For more information about the National Association of Convenience Stores, go to nacsonline.com.